I'm just going to read from Romans chapter 6 because all the people that claim to be saved and still calling themselves sinners, you know, as Romans 8:10 says, that if Christ be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but our spirit is alive because of righteousness. I mean, which is just, testimony to what the apostles were saying. We who were dead in sin are made alive in righteousness, because we're no longer dead in sin. We're made alive in righteousness. We're God's workmanship, created unto good works, which God before ordained the foundations of the world that we should walk in, that Paul testifies concerning in Ephesians. You know, we're not trying to become righteous by our works. That's the law. And as Paul said in Romans chapter 3 verse 20, no flesh should be made righteous, justified, made righteous by the works of the law. For by the law is the knowledge of sin, to know sin. That's what he's describing in chapter 7 of Romans. I had not known sin but by the commandment, or sin by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. Who were once held prisoners in our mind, as he describes in verse 23 of chapter 7, are freed. This is what he's saying in Romans chapter 6. So in verse 7, he who's dead is freed from sin, justified from sin. Verse 14, sin shall no longer have dominion over you, for you're not under the law, but under God's grace. In verse 18, having been freed from sin, you become the slaves of righteousness. He says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid, or certainly not. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Do you not know as many as were baptized into Jesus Christ, not into a Trinity, were baptized into his death? Therefore we were buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of God the Father, even so we should walk in newness of life, which is what he's describing in Colossians chapter 2, verses 11 and 12, when he describes the baptism of Jesus Christ in water baptism as the circumcision made without hands and putting off the body of sins, buried with him in baptism, and through faith in the operation of God, wherein we believe God raised Jesus from the dead, we believe he gives life to our mortal bodies. We're raised together with him, as he says in Colossians 3:1. Amen.